Hey everyone, welcome to The Path of Me. I'm your host, Wendy Hutchinson, and I have the lovely Robin Landau in the house for take two. We were talking, we had an interview recently, and we just got so deep, and then I had to end it because our time was up. So I'm having her back for a second go around. Welcome, Robin. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you. I always look forward to this.
It was so great. Robin is so many things. She's a licensed massage therapist. She is a Mark Onyx energy practitioner and teacher. She does, gosh, Robin, you do so many things.
Interior design with feng shui, and I do Ascension coaching, actually. So I help people who are sensitive to the shift that's going on, and the planetary alignments are in such a way that energies are kind of influencing us, and we can either fall and go, follow the shadow and feel more discordant to ourselves, or we can raise above and be in the light and feel more aligned and connected. So I help people kind of discern between those two things.
Yeah. Tell me what your definition of ascension is.
So ascension is really, it's not a destination per se. It's more about a vibration. So we have days when we feel good and light and bright, and then there are days that we feel kind of solemn and fall into this place of, it could feel like we're, trenching through the molasses type of thing. And so ascension is really about raising our vibrations. And always, regardless of what's going on outside of us, we can maintain a balance. We can choose to stay in those higher vibrations, which then keep us in an alignment with who we really are, our fullest potential. So ascension in essence is really kind of raising above the chaos, is how I like to describe it.
Yeah. I also think it's alignment with our higher selves. It's alignment with ourselves. Like the more aligned we become, the more density we drop, which helps us to elevate and rise a little bit, right?
It is, but most people have to first understand who that is. Like when we when we're connecting to whatever it is you want to call it, God, prime creator, it doesn't really matter what you call it, but we're no longer bypassing, we are bypassing the middleman in a sense, and we're going directly to our Godhead. So if people can start to understand that if we all start as a ball of light, right? And prime creator wanted to have as many experiences as it could, so it created billions of souls, right? At the same time, we each have an oversoul, and our oversoul wanted to have as many experiences as it could, so it fractaled for this experience, for this evolutionary period that we are in right now. Our oversouls wanted to have as many experiences as it could, so it fractaled. And think of that as when you shine light onto a crystal, and then the light beam kind of spreads out, or like a rainbow, so to speak. We fractaled, and we became we did get the sense that we're separate from ourselves, but each of those fractals are having experiences simultaneously on different dimensions, different timelines, and even different galaxies for that matter. And so where we are in our evolution, we have the opportunity now to integrate back. All those fractals are coming back. And so when you say we're aligning to ourselves at source, our Godhead self, we no longer, like our oversoul in a sense, is going to ascend out. And then we become what we call our soul sovereignty. in
That's a
essence.
beautiful explanation. Thank you for that.
Yeah, that's, so yes, ascension is connecting to that place, but
Mm-hmm.
just to get to that point, you first have to understand that it's really not a destination. It's really just about keep aligning, because this, what we're calling soul sovereignty, is really us at a future place. And then we need to rise ourselves, our vibration high enough so that we can connect, almost bridge the two, right?
Definitely.
So
Definitely.
yeah.
I'm
So
really
that,
curious to know how all of the talents and gifts that you have come together to connect and help people with this ascension journey.
well, for me, my story, massage therapy wasn't my original career choice, actually, but massage was just something that I did since I'm a little girl. My father would have my sister and I, walk on his back and massage his feet, and then as we grew up, my family was on the swim team, and so massage was just something we just did. Muscle cramps, in the legs and the feet and whatever. And then I would notice that people would just kind of line up. My parents, friends in college, I went to
You definitely had a gift for it then.
yeah. So, but it was never something, this is back in the 80s when I went to college. Massage still had the massage parlor kind of connotation to it.
Right.
And
It wasn't really looked at as a career
it
option.
wasn't. So
Yeah.
when it just so happened, one of my teachers in college really, he changed the course of
I
my
was going
life.
to ask you about this
At
teacher
the
of
last,
yours. You
yeah.
had a really, I think, expanding of consciousness by just taking his course. So tell me a little bit about that. Tell me about him and about his
Well,
class and the
so
impact it
this
had.
was in college. We were required to take, core classes, and this was just a humanity class. And I really kind of chose it from the title. The title of the class was the Undiscovered Humanities 222, the Undiscovered Self. And I add the Humanities 222 because that was from Edgar Casey. That was one of his. It was 222 was a big significant there, and he had a book called The Undiscovered Self. And so Professor Baker, explained that that's how he chose the title of the class. But the class was really about stripping away all that society has kind of conditioned us to be, and really kind of go about it through the older philosophers and the poets and the writers of the time that really understood the soul essence. And it introduced me to religion and about karma and the role of the ego, which we really just think about it. Most of your viewers probably, because I myself didn't understand the true essence of how the ego plays in all of this, in our evolution.
It's a huge aspect of our
because
development.
Yes. Compassion, if it's not in balance, is really just an extension of the ego. And as light workers or as healers, we tend to, as healers, define ourselves as help, not just helping people, but back in the day we were fixing people. And as we now know, we're not fixing anyone. We're really just a conduit for it. So to understand the role of the ego so early on in my 20s, and even, in all honesty, it took another 20 years for me to fully understand it, but just to plant the seed for me that the ego needs to be in balance, and how karma plays a role in that. Because if you let karma dictate what's going to happen, then the ego stays out of balance, in a sense. So Professor Baker's class was monumental. And really, first of all, to even know that there were other people that thought the way I was thinking.
That must have been awesome to really connect to some people who were like, this totally resonates, and no, you're not the only one.
Well, now, mind you, there were people in the class, because this was an elective, thought Professor Baker was crazy. And, you know, Professor Baker would say, and I know you'll be able to anticipate, you know, when you're driving and you get into that groove and you're like, holy moly, how did I just get to where I don't even remember getting there? Because you kind of go into that place.
Tuned out or something. Yeah.
Right. But yet you're still, you know, you're still conscious of what you're doing. And when I remember when he told that story and people were like, he is crazy. Like, I would never get into a car with him. But I totally understood where he was coming from. So anyway, he really kind of, you know, molded me at a time when I was still, that was in my junior year.
That's a real pivotal time in your life too, because you're still trying to define who you are, what you're about, you know. And a lot of us at that age, or kids now at that age, you know, early 20s, probably the 20s in general, is a time of real self-discovery. And you're not really sure where you fit in, and you're trying to make sense of the world and trying to find your place.
Yeah, and I was kind of rebelling too. And I think your 20s, or for that time, you kind of step away from all that, you know, dogmatic stuff. You know, you're kind of trying to find your way, and you think you know everything.
Oh yeah,
in your
exactly.
20s, you think you know everything, and so you get a little, you know, that arrogance, which is all another, you know, extension of the ego. But he, you know, there were some books that I still refer back to because it really was. It was so powerful for me. And mind you, my first mentor, I mentioned in our other interview, that came into my life at a time when I was very depressed and I had suicidal thoughts. And when I started working with her, she actually advised me not to read anything. She didn't want me to get tainted because I didn't have the linear maturity to discern what
That's
really
such good advice. It's such good advice, because it's really important for us to really tune into ourselves.
That's right.
And so, find out what things resonate with us and what things don't, without having outside influence and having people say, no, this really is the way. This is the book. This is the way you need to be. You know, when you are allowing everyone around you to tell you what is right, you lose yourself in that process.
You can. There's that potential, and I'm so grateful that I was guided not to, because I was like a sponge, and I was naive and easily influenced to.
So that was great advice that you received right on time.
So then when I went to Professor Baker's class, and he, you know, and mind you, because he was a professor, he had to approach this very neutral. He wanted to give us, this is everything, and now you make up your own, decide for yourself what resonates and what doesn't. And, you know, involving Greek mythology and Roman history, and it was really gave me such a well-rounded basis for then when I decided to step into massage therapy, which is a whole nother, you know, how I even did that. I just serendipitously was doing an internship program for the state education department in Albany. And in the same building was the Office of Professional Licensing. And, you know, my roommates would say, you've got to do something with this. You're so talented. And I went to the office, in New York State had, you know, gave me a stack of papers to go through, and I was so impressed with the credentials that were needed to become a massage therapist. So I said, okay, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to go the medical route. I'm not going to, at least I'm going to be recognized as,
you want some credibility, right?
Credibility. So,
you want some sort of initials after your name or something to,
well, the initials would have been the same, but I didn't want to be in that gym setting, although I did that in the beginning, and I didn't want to be in the beauty kind of arena either. I wanted, if I was going to do this, it was going to be, and I didn't even know what that looked like. I didn't know where massage therapy.
And then you landed exactly where you needed to be. So it worked out perfectly, right?
I did. I answered an ad in the New York Times. A prominent doctor in New York City was looking for a massage therapist to work with a condition called lymphedema, which is after breast cancer surgery or prostate cancer surgery. You get a swollen limb, so to speak. So I got that. And then that's where my coaching started, because the lymphedema was actually worse than the cancer that they survived. And so you were able to, coach them to really believe in themselves and
not be defined by that, right?
Exactly, which helped me and in that whole parallel. So that then just led me to interior design, because I needed I'm like, I don't know if I can do this forever. My joints were starting to hurt, and then as soon as I went to interior design school, my joints stopped hurting. So it was actually
that was literally just a nudge from the universe to kind of go in a different direction.
Right. Again, more breadcrumbs to follow.
Yeah.
And then that led me to the feng shui, because I started understanding, recognizing the energy signatures in
your clients,
in the clients' emotional bodies, and then in their homes. And then
I think people don't understand how important their energetic body is. Their frequency. It drives everything. It is the source of everything. And yet people aren't aware of
people
it.
have to understand that there is a emotional body, the mental body, and then the physical body. So that whole mind, body, spirit, trifecta is really just what that is. And you have to understand that before anything manifests in the physical, it has to go through the emotional and mental bodies. And that's where ascension, where our focus, when we're pulling up the density, it's the density that's stuck in the DNA of our emotional and mental bodies, right? So we now know, as we're raising in vibration, that more than the 7 general chakras, the pineal, pituitary, and the thymus gland are associated with other chakras that are now, they've always existed, but they were just never turned on, so to speak.
I think a lot of a lot of aspects of ourselves have been laying dormant. Our abilities, chakras, DNA has been literally limited.
Think about it.
Experience.
Right. Well, think about it. We were taught that our energy fields are 5 to 6 feet, right, from our body, and more in an egg shaped. And within actuality, and I learned this many years ago in other energy workshops that I was doing, that our energy fields extend actually 30 feet in every direction. So that in and of itself, if we're told, oh, well, it's only 5 to 6 feet, that's so limiting. That's so limiting.
It is. But, limitations are exactly in place to keep people from maybe seeking this expansion and alignment and ascension, right?
That's right. Well, another thing I want to actually share about Professor Baker was, this was back in 1987. And back in 1987, meditation was really kind of coming in, yoga, all that stuff was really starting to get into
traction.
Some traction to the mainstream, especially in the colleges. And he invited us to participate in a one-day worldwide meditation around the world that was the harmonic convergence. And I didn't really even know back then the significance of that. But that day in August of 1987 was kind of to jumpstart what was going to occur at the end of 2012, right? And actually 2013, because if you do the math, it's 26 years. It was going to help us actually activate what we now have, completed at the end of 2012, but what, this the crystalline grid which surrounds our planet. And think of the crystalline grid as just a whole bunch of nodes with light censored ley lines that go throughout the grid, that, you know, and it's in the surface of our earth as well.
Exactly. I feel like there are definite points that correlate with different locations, you know, in conjunction with the grid.
That's right.
And
so
I feel like a lot of light workers are positioned at very specific nodes and points around the globe, because they anchor light, or they're holding frequency, or, you know, whatever it is they're doing is really tied to, they think that their location is just by random circumstance, but really they're there for a very specific reason, energetically,
Exactly.
for the planet and humanity.
Well, you know, it's so funny because, not funny, but I got the sense that I think there's a move in place for me. I don't know where that is, but I was so guided to live where I live.
Mm-hmm.
And now I do truly believe that I'm here specifically to help, you know, spread the love, so to speak, and help raise the vibration for this ascension.
I feel the same way here. You know, I live in Houston. It's a very dense place. And you'd be surprised how many light workers are in this area.
I mean, if we all leave the dense areas, then who's going to be there to help raise the vibration of it? Right? And that's what I mean about when I said at the very beginning of, regardless of what's going on outside of you, once you start to realize that you can control your own environment, then it doesn't matter what's going on, because you just create your own utopia.
And it's also a reflection of your inner environment. Your inner being radiates out and affects and alchemizes your outer existence and reality, your tangible reality. It all comes from your inner being. And now I know there are going to be people who are going to be saying, what are you talking about? My life is chaotic and it's stressful and I'm in this drama and all this is happening with my family. And, you know, there's going to be people saying, I didn't create that. I didn't create that. What are you talking about? Well, you know, I have news for you. You don't only create joy, abundance, and magic. You also create scenarios that force you to kind of look inside and go within. All of those experiences are mirroring something for you to actually go, oh, there's an aspect to me that needs healing or needs to be explored. Those are triggers for you.
Right. So think of it like this. If we understand that we're in this place of duality, right? We've always been like, it's black and white, or right and wrong, and all these duality that's going on. And as we're shifting, we become the observers of ourselves. Then we enter the realm of triality, where when you can take a step out of it and see the bigger picture as we connect with our soul sovereignty, our Godhead self, and which, you know, obviously has a bigger picture of what's going on. From that viewpoint, from that vantage point, we can take responsibility and say, well, if it's in my reality, I've manifested it. And then
what is this about for me?
Then you get out of the role of victimhood.
Yes. And
you start to surrender to saying, okay, instead of always being so reactive, we can start responding and saying, okay, there's chaos. Where, you know, is this chaos that's created from within me? Am I doing it, or is this outside of me and just triggering me for me to then rise above it and respond? And listen, ascension is not all rainbows and unicorns. It's not all just being nice. It's sometimes you need to you know, go.
You need to be creator destroyer. There is definitely a line and polarity there. Creator destroyer, that doesn't mean you're always nice, you're always giving in, you're always doing the sweet thing. Sometimes you have to be the destroyer. Set boundaries, set
all
firm
about
boundaries to honor yourself. and to show people how to treat you.
So then that just brings me to talk about, because boundaries are so important in every aspect. When you raise a family, if you just let your children do anything they want, then they're not going to understand, what boundaries are like, right? And even with ourselves, we have to first create healthy energetic boundaries around ourselves, and that includes spiritual hygiene. And people don't understand one of my biggest pet peeves. I have a lot of yoga instructors that are clients of mine, and whenever I'm in an energy session, there is a bunch of protocol that we do prior to a session, clearing the space. And then there's a protocol that we do at the end of the session where we close down and we separate ourselves, right?
Yes.
Think about it. Do you know any yoga instructor who does a class who clears the space before the class before? Because in those environments,
there's a lot of shedding.
There's shedding going on.
They're releasing a lot. And then the next class walks in to all of that slime.
That's right. That's right. And so if you are not putting up your own protection and that slime is in the room, and I like to talk about how when we don't clear our own energetic fields, right, then it's like Swiss cheese where there's holes in your energetic field. And if you're not feeling well, or you didn't get enough sleep, or in those fear-based frequencies that are kind of bring your vibration down, then you'll be a vibrational match to that slime
and attract it.
And it hooks in.
It'll attach.
So that's why I'm a big, with all my clients, because I'm all about empowering, and I know you are as well. And if we can teach our clients the importance and benefits of personal spiritual hygiene, about
100%.
People talk about putting yourself in a bubble of protection, but what's the point of putting yourself in a bubble of protection if you're not cleansed first? That's like putting clean clothes on a dirty body. And so it's really important that you can't just put yourself in, stay in this bubble of protection around you if your energy field is not.
So you really, I really do coach people or my clients to clear, ground, and protect. Clear, ground, and protect. Always. Morning and night. Because,
at least.
Yes,
at least.
At a minimum, right? And to learn how to discern when you're feeling off, is this yours or is this not yours? A lot of people are sensitive. A lot of people are empathic and are like sponges and absorb everything from everybody. And they walk around feeling exhausted and emotional. And they go through life like that. And they don't even understand that they are actually absorbing it all into their field. And it doesn't even belong to them. They've been carrying like the weight of the world, with them their whole lives. Just lack of awareness.
Well, people don't even understand that I'm sorry this is happening. I thought
that's
I turned
okay.
that off, but they don't even understand that what an empath is and why that is, that they feel so sensitive to these energies. So many of us are empathic. If you're a sensitive soul, if it makes you uncomfortable to go into a room and see someone sad, that's an empath. And then your ego is thinking, this is uncomfortable. And so you just absorb it, like you said, like a sponge. And you're so right. It's so important to understand that the importance of protecting your energy. So what I like to do, what I would say to people is start out, not just in the morning, that's a given. When you wake up in the morning, you clear, you go into gratitude. And I always ask my guy, myself at source for any messages. So sometimes it'll be as simple as, don't forget to call so-and-so or check in on so-and-so, but it might be even something more important of like, like a safety thing or something like that. So that's my first thing. But then throughout the day, whatever is habitual, whether it's brushing your teeth, I always do when I, buckle my seatbelt in the car, I do a cleansing and protection. So anything habitual in your life, get into the habit of paying attention to how do I feel energetically, and do a clearing and a protection.
It's like a quick check-in.
A quick check-in, because then as you're doing it, as you do it throughout the day, that's when you'll start to notice when you're not cleared.
Right.
Because if we just go throughout the day, we get so distracted by life.
Then by the end of the day, you're just like, oh my gosh, what hit me?
Exactly.
But if you're constantly on point and constantly checking in with yourself, like, how do I feel? Am I energetically depleted? Do I feel emotional? And also that's a great tool for discernment, because over time you're going to start to recognize. If you don't pay attention, you don't recognize
that muscle, right? So when I put on my lipstick, whatever I do on a habitual way, in the shower, brushing my teeth, like I said, the seatbelt, just get into whatever you do, something that's habitual, just get into the habit of checking.
And a check-in, kind of, for people who aren't used to this or don't really understand what that means, it's just being present with yourself and asking yourself, how do I feel right now? How do I feel physically? How do I feel energetically? How do I feel emotionally? And you're going to start to recognize, sometimes you feel great and on point and like you're in the flow, and sometimes you feel like a wreck. You're going to start to tune in and notice.
So if you notice people that, if they have long hair, people that are flicking their hair, that's usually they're flicking like something that's energetically off. So start to notice things on how people do. If you see people just kind of like, brushing away imaginary lint, it's really, you're kind of brushing at your energy field. So just first of all, so that's one thing, to start noticing what you do for yourself. Mm-hmm. Another thing is, when you do your check-in, feel how you feel in your head space, because if you feel heavy here, usually you're not cleared, because you should feel, after you do a check-in and a clearing, you feel lighter and brighter, lighter and brighter. That's the feeling you want. So
I know people are going to ask, how do I clear something? So I feel like I'm kind of off or something. I've recognized it. How do I clear it? That's going to be the next question, right?
Right. So the way there's lots of different ways to do a clearing. So you can do it as simply as, I clear my mind, body, and spirit, and you can just do a clearing that way. You can do a shower head, where you kind of envision a shower head, and coming out of it is a golden shower of
golden
light.
Rain energy, or
exactly.
or light energy.
You can go through a car wash, or a kind of a scanning kind of a thing. There's lots of different things, because you have to remember that most of this is really, it's all about intention.
Exactly.
So when you intend it and you believe it, you have to also believe in it. You can't just go through the motions, because if you don't believe that
it's not going to happen for you.
It's not going to work.
Right.
It's just not going to be effective, because you have to believe it. That's the first thing. So there's lots of different, in the very early stages, I had like a Tinkerbell with fairy dust, and I would feel the fairy dust, and Tinkerbell will go through my house and clean my house. And so you really have to, but now
what resonates for you, because everybody's going to have their own thing that resonates for them as far as clearing. But these are just some suggestions for people. So we're asking you to really be mindful. And some of the things we've covered is detachment, being able to step back and observe what's happening in your life and respond in a less emotional way. You're not reactive. You're just observing, and you're turning inward and asking what's being triggered. We're encouraging you to use spiritual hygiene, which includes that check-in. Where am I energetically? How am I feeling? And as Robin suggested, do that when you are doing those routine things you're used to doing every day. Then cleansing your field. I mean, these are really basic things that can really shift you in a powerful way. They seem so simple. Grounding also is very important. Grounding energetically into your field is so important, in my opinion. Most people are in their heads, freaking out and stressed out and losing it.
And go into that heart space, if you feel anxious. A great thing is to just keep your hands in this position, put your thumb into that heart space, and breathe into it, like get back into your body, and
Yeah.
feel grounded.
Yeah.
And then let's not forget about the protection.
Yes.
And so the protection can look a lot, buzzwords or, sacred geometry now, but truly, if you just put yourself in whatever feels right to you,
It's
bubble.
basically a protective space.
Exactly.
That surrounds you. It doesn't have to be a specific shape. I think creating the intention that you are within a protected space around your energy field, intention really, as Robin said, is so important and critical, right?
Exactly.
But I want to transition now before we run out of time again. I really want to talk to Robin about her being a Mark Onyx teacher and some of the concepts of Mark Onyx and how it helps people with their ascension, how it ties in energetically to help people. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Robin.
Thanks. Okay, so Mark Onyx is ascension energy. It is multidimensional as well. It's free. It's full spectrum. So what that means is that Mark Onyx, which really just came to us in the end of 2012, 2013, when the planets were positioned in such a way, it allowed, when the Earth was above the galactic plane, energies were then, we had access to energies that we didn't have access to before, or at least for not a long time. And so these energies are here to help us pull out this density that we've accumulated lifetime after lifetime. Think about it. Each of us have had 600 to 900 lifetimes.
There's so much karmic debris within our fields that we have to clear.
And what is this karmic debris? It's what we have just accumulated. That's because if it's not love, it's fear, and those fear densities, when our chakra systems were nipped at the spine, and there's a lot of that, pineal and pituitary glands were calcified, and there were so many things that occurred for this purpose so that we can exist in the density of the third dimension, right? Because as we're ascending into these higher bandwidths of frequency. So
which correlate to higher dimensions.
Right. And think about it, each dimension then has bandwidth. So like the fourth dimension, which most of us are existing in at the moment, has 9 bandwidths of frequency. And then fifth has, and sixth, seventh, and goes all the way up. So Mark Onyx, being full spectrum, has access to all of these dimensions, and it's multidimensional, meaning that it has, so if we need it, as we're walking into someone's field and they need frequencies that are coming from the 36th dimension, whatever, and this bandwidth, we just trust that the client is getting what they need, because our egos are not involved in any sessions. So we're not intending or directing the energy in any way. We're just
the conduit for the energy.
Vessel. Right.
And we are really here to facilitate the highest, whatever their team deems necessary, right? We're there, present, and a conduit for the energy only. That's it. There's no agenda to heal, no agenda for anything, really, except to be present and allow that energy to run for the client.
And we've been told that Mark Onyx is the only modality at this time that is allowing these integrations into the human body, and to that we can achieve soul sovereignty, right? Because we're moving from a free will zone, right, and then to divine will, and now it's divinely inspired free will. That's really what we're moving into. And what is a divinely inspired free will? What does that look like? Well, imagine as each of us as the human incarnate is becoming a better version of themselves. Imagine a collective of all of that as we're integrating back to our wholeness, right? We talked about how we were a ball of light and we fractaled. As we becoming our highest version of ourselves, and then connecting to this spiritual highness of ourselves and merging the two and being the best version of that, then that's what we call a divinely inspired free will, being, so that we are making choices from a higher place, not from fear, not from the ego, but from a divinely inspired place of just being whole.
So would you say that Mark Onyx is giving people the tools and laying the groundwork for them to actually step into this experience?
Absolutely. That's what it is. We are not doing it like, we are giving you the tools, but you then need to do the work. We say that Mark Onyx isn't for everyone. But if you're, you have to have your life vest on and you got to blow your whistle, and you got to do the work. We can't, we're not in the business of saving anyone. It's really about,
I always say, it's kind of like you're getting the keys to a brand new sports car, and it's not going to do you any good if you stay parked in the garage.
That's
and sit in it in the garage. It's not going to take you anywhere. You have to actually choose to back that thing out and
you can also
go on the journey.
That's right. And you can also think of it as, the keys on a piano. You have one set of notes that you can play, but as you start to bring in the melodies, and then think of that as all the frequencies that we have access to. But if you don't bother to bring in the melodies, then it's just a simple song, right? Like, you really need to start using
well, from our perspective, you limit yourself if you're not willing to expand, and it is your choice. Everybody can choose what's best for them, but when you take the opportunity to expand and shed a lot of that fear, and part of these, let's talk a little bit, Robin, about the tools that or things that happen through a recalibration or through a no-touch session that help people, with this process, to expand a little bit more, to drop density, things like that.
So our no-touch protocol is our an ongoing process. So you always get an incremental bump up in your energy field. Think of that as you're being flooded with very high frequency, and density is being pulled out. You have the opportunity to release karma as well, and it's connecting you, like pituitary and pineal gland is decalcifying in a session like that, and so you're flooded with this energy, and you get this bump up in your frequency, and then you do power back down as you go back into the world, and you're absorbing the density of just everyday life, but you'll never power back down to zero. You always have a sustained bump up in your frequency.
So those sessions are actually building on each other as they continue with no touch sessions. It's like an incremental
bump up in your frequency.
So their baseline frequency continues to rise. Every time they do another session, it builds on the last. They never go back to that original baseline.
Which is something like, like Reiki. With Reiki, you power back down to nothing, like it was before. That's why it's a very temporary. With Mark Onyx, they say it could last like 2 weeks. If you're going through an intense time, you could get a session maybe once a week, every 3 to 4 days. But this is not something you would do every day, because you can.
Well, you have to allow for the shedding process too, because as we're pulling things off the field, that karmic debris we're talking about, as we're pulling that out of the field, there's deeper stuff coming up. This is a process of release. It's a process of inner work and exploration. Mm-hmm. And what happens sometimes is those surface layers get removed, but there's going to be deeper layers that are going to come up, and that's the work we're talking about. There's some assembly required. You have to actually be willing to sit in some discomfort and really examine yourself through it.
Because, Mark Onyx is really, it's an accelerant. So it's like pulling off the Band-Aid. So like you're saying, all this stuff is going to come up to the surface that needs to be cleared. So if it's in your field, it's coming
and there's a lot, by the way.
All of
lifetimes. So that's where, maybe
but if you can surrender to that process,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what I say, surrender to the process of letting go what no longer serves you or not a vibrational match. It's not that you're not going to feel uncomfortable, but your rebound is much quicker. You once you surrender to, it's ascension symptoms, I'm letting go.
So much of it too is perspective around what you're experiencing. 100% is perspective. If you understand this process is to help you, not to break you. If you can shift your perspective and change the lens that you're viewing your experiences through, it's going to be easier for you, because life is not against you. The goal is for you to live your best life and to align with your highest potential and align with that sovereign aspect of self, embody that sovereign aspect of self. And you've been given all the tools.
Because it is you. Your sovereign self is you at a future point. It's the version of you that already went through all of this. So it's not outside of us. And that's something to really needs to get across. It's never been outside of us.
Tell me a little bit about the recalibration so people can understand that process.
The recalibration is like our claim to fame in a sense, because it's a one and done. So once you're recalibrated, you're not recalibrated again. It's done over two sessions, and those 2 sessions need to be done within 72 hours of each other. Or just a night's sleep in between is really all that's required. And there's 2 parts to the recalibration besides it being 2 days. On the first day, there's what we call when we uncap your chakras and we allow them then to blossom into the spherical component that they are, and they actually fit into each other like a Russian doll, if you can imagine that. So each one fits into each other, and then as they blossom, they then start spinning. So each chakra then spins in such a way that karma no longer has the opportunity to attach itself. And so because it works in a unified field, then we start to expand that's when our
field starts to expand.
And goes from that 5 to 6 into the 30 feet, and it go in every direction. So it's not that egg shape that we now have before recalibration. It expands in every direction, and then in that we also when we uncap your chakras, we are actually then pulling off 51% of your karma. So in essence, even though over 600 to 900 lifetimes, 51% may not seem like that much, but it really gives us just enough so that we tilt the scale.
I was going to say, it tips the scale a little bit to give you a little more of an advantage, because to clear that 51% would take you lifetimes. So,
that's why we say, like the ascended masters who have cleared 100% of their karma, some of them were able to sit on a mountaintop and not deal with, have any interaction with anyone or anything. And so in those situations we can, but we were told, Alison David Bird, when she was instructed about how to use Mark Onyx, we were told that we don't have the time in linear fashion for us to clear that. So
to physically clear it on our own. So this is a tool to like you said, accelerate the process for people.
Exactly.
If they feel called to it, right?
Right. So that clearing that 51% just kind of gives us the advantage, but that doesn't bypass the lessons. So we each have to then still, even though the karma is cleared, it's like taking, like, because time we're kind of arcing it a little bit so that, here's where we need to get to, and so we can kind of learn the lessons on a more accelerated path, so to speak. Right.
Hold on. It can be very fast. Like Robin said,
fast.
I mean, really quick.
Buckle
I know
up.
for myself, when they said it was an accelerated path, I really didn't understand what that meant. But not only was it an accelerated path in releasing density, but also my human life. The more aligned I became, the more accelerated I was pushed onto my path, my career path, opportunities, everything in resonance started to just line up, and it was just like being shot out of a cannon. You know, it's just like happened so quickly. And that is one of the things that happens, right, when we're
exactly. So once we start to align with ourselves, so you start to get these knowings. It's more than just hearing things or like getting ideas.
It's not the old way of connecting, which most people are used to, maybe seeing or hearing or getting information in one way. It's like all of a sudden it's like boom, a download of knowing. It's just there.
Right. And so it can be expressed like I get the goosies. I used to get tingly up here. Now it's goosies down my legs. And that's my knowing kind of a feeling. If someone says something that resonates with me, I get my goosies, and that's my confirmation. Right. Or,
more physical confirmations as well, where you feel a real physical hard pull.
Right. And that's why we're advising people to kind of step away from using pendulums and whatnot, because pendulums can actually open up portals. And when you're asking, for what's in my best interest, even, well, who's giving you that answer? Who are you opening up that portal to that's giving you the guidance? Is it someone that's sanctioned by you at source, or is it an entity that's on another agenda and wants kind of to get you to do something that's not
maybe aligned with who you are?
Exactly.
It's so important to know who you're connecting to, and it should always be you. 100% of the time.
What Mark Onyx is trying to get everyone, because as you clear the static, that's how I describe Mark Onyx in a sense. We're kind of clearing away the static. So when we are aligning with ourselves, we're not distracted by all that other stuff that's kind of been in in our programming and the way that we perceive. We talked about perception. Through the eyes of perception, sometimes that's just because the ego doesn't like to be uncomfortable, we tend to make decisions for ourselves to stay in that comfort zone, when in fact it's in your best interest to kind of move out of your comfort zone.
Well, there's no growth if you don't move out of your comfort zone. You stay in this very finite space.
Right. So we have to really be open to the messages that are really, from our Godhead place, that already knows all the potential timelines. And you want to be able to align yourself with the timeline that gives you the best version of you.
Exactly. I think also too, what's really important is that people are discerning. Discernment is such a huge part of this process, because what I've found, or what I'm observing, is people really stepping out and constantly seeking validation from outside sources. Outside. The pendulum would be an outside source. The tarot cards or the angel cards, outside source. The psychic.
Because people don't trust themselves.
Yes, the faith part. It requires tremendous faith in yourself. And we've been so programmed not to believe in ourselves. And I think that fear creates that doubt, that ego creates that doubt. Such a huge piece of this puzzle.
And laziness.
Right? You could just call somebody and say, hey, so what do you think about that? Right? And not have to really tune in and go, wow, what do I really think about this?
Flex that muscle. To flex that muscle, it takes work. There is assembly that is required from us. And
but it's all possible. I mean, that's what I try to encourage my clients to understand. We're not any different from you. Every single person can tune in and create alignment and have discernment, but it takes time and intention and conscious living to get to that place. It doesn't just get handed to you in a gold envelope.
That's right. And think of it this way. So many people get really uncomfortable when they feel out of control, right? The only thing we can control is ourselves and our energy fields. So the more that you flex these muscles, the more that you start to discern and get your own yeses and nos, as opposed to looking outside of ourselves, then you have more control. That to me is the most empowering thing. And then you start to feel more at peace, because you feel more in control of you in every situation. You can't control what's going out there, but you can control.
You can always control your response.
Exactly.
Yeah, always control your
and
response
then
to it.
That gives you the control that you've been looking for, and it's only been in ourselves.
And it's such a beautiful space, because when you're in a space of alignment and harmony, there could be complete chaos happening. And you can really manage your response. And like you said, respond from a very high perspective.
That's right. So when
that's not always being totally kind either. Like we were saying, sometimes that's just setting boundaries and saying, I will not tolerate this.
Exactly. But when you start to go into those downward spiraling thoughts that you're not enough, or that you need something, like I can't trust my answers, you need to go somewhere else. But whenever you have thoughts that put you into doubt, what I always say is recognize it, observe, be the observer, and then go, and you have to switch that brain. You have to go into gratitude, because gratitude is a love vibration, and it will trump any of those negative spiraling thoughts.
Always.
And so I say to people, look in your immediate environment. I don't care where you are. You can be standing online and you're admiring the color blouse that someone's wearing, or if you're outside and the sun is shining on your face and it feels really good, then go. The
gratitude practice is so huge. And also, what I know for sure is you can't be in the vibration of suffering and gratitude at the same moment. So the deeper I've been in suffering in my life, the deeper my gratitude practice. I mean, I have to go deep, deep, deep in gratitude when I'm suffering deeply, which, I don't so much anymore. But in the early part of my journey, there was a lot of emotional suffering.
I'm sure a lot of your viewers are like, this is just another aspect of spiritual hygiene, is to start to be more into control of it's your thoughts, it's who you hang out with, right? If you're in a miserable job, all these things you have to start paying attention to.
And also, if you're making excuses for why you have to stay in these things, that's not resonant for you. Right. If you're doing things that are resonant and aligned with you, there is no explanation necessary. That's right. And after energy and alignment of it.
And after your recalibration, just know that when
things fall away,
when people, places, and things that are no longer a vibrational match will fall away. I mean, personally, I've had my best friend of 10 years, just for no apparent reason that she could give us, decide, just
vanished.
I say she divorced me, but it wasn't, because it was really a family affair. We did all our vacations together. Yeah. We did everything. And you know what? In hindsight, it was the best thing, because I was forcing a relationship. I wanted a Gail. I wanted Oprah's Gail.
Yes.
And, you kind of, through your own sense of control, try to create this. And when, that was hard, but
when you're holding on to things that aren't resonant, then that doesn't leave space for the things that are to come in.
And that's right.
For those right people, or that right job, or that right partner, or that right home, or, when you're clinging, it's really difficult to actually, I think, you can't create, you don't have the space to invite that in.
You can't. So the recalibration is really about retooling. We go from a 2.0 human template to a 3.0 human template. And with that, you also get an expansion in your light body. So you can just imagine all these things that we're putting into place. Because imagine, if you will, like a brand new home, right? And there's a plumbing, all the plumbing is in the home and everything else, but it was never turned on. You know, the water never went through
That's
it.
such a good analogy.
And so when
Right.
we are flooding you with these very high frequencies, and mind you, when we do a recalibration, we're working through the XCA tonal system. So there's the XCA tonal system, XCB, and XCC tonal system, and think of that as the plumbing system. And then when we turn it on, when we turn the faucet on, and all that light frequency and energy is moving through, and then the switches start to turn on, right? Because it's been laid dormant. We this is maybe for another conversation, but we already were multidimensional prior to this human experience that we're
We've
coming
chosen.
to a close. We're coming to a close. We're moving from the age of Pisces into the age of Aquarius. And with that, there are characteristics that change as well. And so because we are now becoming sovereign, right, we're integrating back to our wholeness. This is the first time ever in all time of any evolution that we can do this, staying in the human vehicle, in the physical.
Yes.
And that's why staying grounded, you couldn't give your viewers more advice than that, because a lot of these essences that are integrating back into us don't know what it feels like to be in this density and with gravity.
It can be very difficult.
And so staying in our body is helping us to assimilate these frequencies that are integrated.
I also want to say that it's very important to ground into your energetic field. Do not ground into the earth. That grounding into the earth was a practice for a long time, and I know many people still do that. I'm going to tell you it's very important that you are grounding into your own energetic field. Do not anchor yourself into earth at all, because you do not know where you are vibrationally, dimensionally, or what version of earth you are tethering yourself to. You really want to be anchored fully into your energetic self.
And people aren't going to understand what that even feels like. And so that's why, again, I like to say, if you can just feel into that heart space, because there's the galactic heart that's opening up. So you have the heart chakra, you have the throat chakra, and in between that is associated with the thymus gland is your galactic heart. And if you can go there, or even if it feels better for you to go into your solar plexus, but you need to ground into you. And if you don't know what that feels like in the beginning, then just if you just put your awareness where your hands are, it'll just bring you back in. And with the intention, if you just set the intention that I'm grounding into my energetic field, then that will be enough in the beginning.
Yes,
you
for
need to trust
sure.
that.
Well, Robin, thank you so much for all that amazing information. Gosh, I hope that we really shed some light on what the journey is about for Ascension, given some tools to help people, and also shed some light on Mark Onyx as a tool to help people with Ascension, as it is an Ascension energy modality, not healing modality. It's not about the body, it's about the light body, okay, and energetic frequency. So I'm going to put the markonyx.com website down below for people who are interested in learning more about Mark Onyx. Robin and I both are practitioners, of course, and you can find information on us after.
I teach in the I'm a teacher in the New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania tri-state area, but we have teachers all over the United States. And
so if you're interested in learning more, definitely check out the website. They have workshops, and they show up at different expos to share information and sample sessions. So, if it feels resonant, that's great. Check it out. And Robin, thank you so much for your time today. You're such a beautiful light, beautiful soul sister, great friend. Thank you. I love you too. And to my audience, again, thank you so much for your support, for tuning in. I love you all, and I hope you're all kind to yourselves and have an amazing day. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.